We're live. Man, it was really delayed this time. It was like a half-hour delay.
Yeah, it was a super weird LinkedIn delay here. Obviously, it had nothing to do with us.
I think AWS went down again, so it was all this,
That was obviously what happened. I mean, it's clear. Like, there's no point in even, in even really talking about it, right? Like, it is what it is. So I am curious. Where are you? You have quite the echo.
I have quite the echo. Yeah, I do.
The room behind you is echo. It sounds like you're doing this from Plato's Cave.
I am in the conference room at the LGBT Community Center. That's where we had our American Leadership Forum session. So, in their big conference room. So, yeah, pretty high ceiling. So that's probably what you hear. So I apologize for the echo.
No, it's all right. It's going to add character to what would otherwise be a dull office hours, I'm sure. Why don't you warm up the chat? This is our startup office hours. Ordinarily, we are on time. Today, we were grotesquely late for reasons that do not matter. But we are apologetic, deep, humble bow. And we're here to take your questions. Anything you got startup related, drop that into the chat, either on if you're on YouTube. We also simulcast this to LinkedIn, so either it's over there or down there. Either way, drop in a comment with your question. We'll prioritize it. But you can always go to jdm.bio and submit a question that way. If you hit the little calendar button, calendar of upcoming office hours, and a form that you can use to actually fill out maybe a more robust question, then you can drop into the tiny little chat box. And we do have a block of questions. We didn't get to all of them last time. So we have a couple of leftovers as well as additional ones. And because that leaves us with 7 questions, everybody has a lot of questions this Halloween. I'm going to grab my trusty 8-sided die to help facilitate the process here. But it is Halloween. We are here on Hallows Eve, Samhain and all that stuff. So I know you didn't follow through on wearing the eye patch, Cameron.
No, sitting in the car. So, but I am I'm I guess in Plato's Cave, as you said. So maybe I'll play, figuring things out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm wearing green and I do have orange shoes on today, so I've got the Halloween colors. And this evening we are taking Liam trick or treating. Last year he sort of kind of understood, but he's 2.5 now, so he's gonna really get it. And so because I married who I did, we have a family costume. So I will be Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park, as one should be, and she's going to be Dr. Sattler, of course. Liam's going to be a dinosaur, but we had a traumatic incident at the Halloween store, and now he doesn't want to wear his costume. So we'll see if we can actually get him into his dinosaur costume. We got him one that has a trigger in the hand, so you can push the button and it growls.
All right. There you
go. I know. Do you and Katie have big plans?
We have a Halloween party we're going to. I don't know if we did the Peaky Blinders last Friday, so I don't know if we'll do that again. I was thinking doing just a simple safari outfit and then doing one of those like Polaroids as the camera. And so you could take Polaroids of people and they can walk away with a picture of themselves.
Well, awesome. That sounds like a rip-roaring good time. Hope everybody else has fantastic plans if you celebrate the Halloween. But that's not why we're here. Speaking of spooky hauntings and cobwebs strewn about, let's talk about your startup. With that, let's go to the gods to figure out whose question we're going to answer first. We're going to go all the way down to question 7. We had 7 questions, and we got lucky with that one. So, Cameron's gonna plop that into the chat for those of you who are, watching live there. But here we go. This is B2B SaaS for career coaches helping mid-career professionals with job transitions. This was kind of like a pop-in market a few years ago. So interesting that the paid pilot stage. They have 16 of those. The paid pilots are coaches. They have 16 of them. They say the coaches love our client assessment and resume building tool, but coaching is trust-based, and they're worried that our software makes them look less personal. How do we enhance their service without diminishing their human value? See, they pay about $55 a month. They use our tools behind the scenes, but don't want clients to know they're using templates or automated assessments. One coach said, "I can't let clients think I'm just filling in forms." We thought we were empowering coaches, but they see software as threatening their expertise, considering white label or invisible backend tools only. Yeah. Cool. Happy Halloween, Jana. I have a few things to say here. So one, I don't like this space. And the reason is that right now, like, it's harder to sell consulting and coaching than it used to be. And a lot of the reason for that is AI, and that's only going to get worse. And so you're in this space where you have this group of relative, laggards in an industry that's going to replace them. And so the automated thing that you're trying to do here to help coaches is interesting. That having been said, I'm wondering if they're even the right customer for this. If you want to survive a couple of years out, if the coaches are feeling like their value is diminished by this, can you bypass the coaches and go directly to the people who are looking to transition to the jobs? Those are the people you're actually helping at the end of the day, and they can obviously afford it because they're paying for a coach. So that's kind of I know that doesn't answer the question directly, but that was my gut. And there's some experiments that you could run to test that fairly cheaply and efficiently. Cameron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my initial thoughts. And then additionally, I'm wondering if there's, something where the coach doesn't necessarily have to put it, front and center in their kind of customer's experience. So the person getting coaching, is there another way for them to engage in the tools, but maybe less of it being in their face? So maybe it's more of that, it looks like it's a personal touch, but you're doing, as a coach, you're running that on the behind the scenes thing. So you maybe create your own input and have them input to you, and then you create the back end component of it. But I think if you're looking at the longevity of your startup, maybe you currently mine this while you can in terms of them bringing in customers to you. But if there's a way that you can continue to add value, if they're using it where the person getting coaching can, opt into something additional that you offer, they can maybe just bypass the coach in general or something of that sort. So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know we didn't actually answer the question, so maybe we can, like, with all that being said, take a stab at it. How do we enhance their service without diminishing their human value? Well, this doesn't sound like what you're offering. Like, you're offering tools to do work, and the feedback that you're getting is that tools and templates and quizzes make this seem less personal, and they don't want tools. So your customers, like, you got 16 of them to pay, which sounds like that they were interested in getting the help, but that their customers are not, or this is a fear on their side. But this does not. I see the writing on the wall with this one. Like, this doesn't seem like this is going to really work out. You can try to see if you can figure out, by talking to these coaches, these 16 coaches, if this is their fear or if it's feedback that they're actually getting from customers. I think that would be interesting. If it's feedback that they're getting from their customers, I think you're kind of done. Again, assuming you can't just pivot to a different kind of coach or something where their customers don't have that particular issue. But if it's not, and it's just a fear-based thing, then we might be able to solve that with UX. There might be some interesting ways that we could do that. But I would be curious about where that fear is coming from, because you got them to sign up and pay, and then the fear manifested. So it's coming from somewhere, and it's probably coming from their customers, and something like, well, why are we paying you, if you're just going to give us this tool? So Anything else to add to that, Cameron?
Nope, I think we've sufficiently gotten that one.
All right. We beat that thing to death. Prioritize the live questions. If you got one, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, you can always submit a question in advance. JDM.bio, calendar, form, boop, 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 boop. Dice. The gods give us. Oh, it landed on the side there. Number one. So, all right. Well, this is boring. The last question. Then we're going to the first question. All right. B2B SaaS. Again, cool. Kind of our bailiwick here. For sleep consultants who help parents with baby sleep training. First, that's real. Just going to say that. Personal experience here, setting that aside. B2B SaaS for sleep consultants who help parents with baby sleep training. They have 11 paid pilots, and they're getting good feedback. It's doing tracking, and it provides sleep plan templates. They're all solopreneurs. They all max out at 10 to 15 clients. So how do we scale revenue where our customers have built-in capacity limits? Consultants pay $45 a month and see clear value, but sleep consulting is one-on-one work. They physically can't take any more clients without burning out. Our revenue per customer is capped. Considering adding customer-facing app, our consultants can sell digital sleep plans and expand their reach, but that changes our business model entirely. So yeah, I like from my perspective. We considered a sleep consultant with Liam, but we ultimately didn't hire one. We did, however, buy 4-5 books on sleep training because it was a process for us, and it's going to trigger some trauma. So I'm just going to set that aside. If you know, you know. But we also did pay for 1 or 2 like online resources. Like one was like a class and some things, and then there were tons of templates. And I also made extensive use of ChatGPT at the time to help with creating these like sleep schedules and things like that. So like there's a lot, my point in saying all that is not to provide like my personal experience, because that's like N of 1. It's to say that the market for consultants is considerably narrower than the markets for broader sleep training solutions, as evidenced by the number of sleep training books that are sitting on the shelves and the number of online courses and content creators who focus specifically on this. And those content creators are all focused on getting that upsell from the consulting. So they make, some money and all those base resources, but then the big upsell is in the coaching. And that's how like the traditional content creator consultant role works. That's really common. It's a proven business model. It works well. But you are capping yourselves at this already like narrowed part of the market. And that may be great for something like go to market, which is fine and cool. But the broader part of the market, like, I mean, you're getting $45 a month for a consultant. Like, we would have paid $45 a month, no problem, for a sleep training tool that helped us create like sleep plan templates. And we used an app to track like our sleep. And so like, I think you're dramatically underpriced relative to the size of the market. I doubt, like, I'm not saying that you can charge more to the sleep consultants, because you probably can't. But the end users here, they're paying anywhere between $50 to $200 just for an online course to help them with something like this. And so, this is just like the last one. I'm actually just questioning whether or not you chose the right customer segment here. I get it, and as a go-to-market strategy, maybe that's interesting, but long term, like what you're seing is like the math doesn't pencil out. And Cameron, you'll get the reference here. I'm reminded of a company in our early Traction Lab portfolio that lasted in the Traction Lab about 3 weeks, because they ended up doing this kind of math and discovered that the market was not large enough for this once they got it segmented down to where it needed to be, and so that required what we call an existential pivot. And I don't think you're in that situation here, because you're a really obvious second customer and they did not. That's kind of my thoughts. Beyond that is like the way you scale. To answer your question directly, the way you scale revenue when your customers have built-in capacity is to go to their customers, because in this case, I think you're like, while you may not be able to charge $45 a month, you can definitely charge something that like something per client that would eclipse what they're paying you. Like, so this $45 a month for 10 to 15 clients gets down to less than $4 a month. And you can definitely charge more than $4 a month for something like this to parents who, need sleep training. Then there might be a channel to your point. So.
Cool. Yeah. So I think to the one point you made on kind of if you stick with just this, it might not be feasible to truly scale, is like using the pirate metrics and kind of what is your minimum success criteria, and then working backwards. So say if you wanted to have a $1 million business and you work backwards, how many customers would you need to have at that scale, and then from there, what's the conversion rate of people that activate on your page that become paying customers, so activation to revenue, and then the conversion from acquisition to activation, and then blah blah blah, right? And so when you work backwards, there might not be enough of these individuals to warrant the ability for you to scale, and so you might need to look at other customers, and so maybe that is directly going to the parents. I also was thinking, is there if this is their, in terms of the consultants, the highest and urgent pain point for them in terms of the severity and urgency, is there a next problem that you can add additional value with an ability to maybe charge more? Maybe there's some more discovery on what that next kind of offering to them, but I think it's probably a little bit easier in a larger market to then go directly to the parents themselves. And so, especially because you already have demonstration that you created the value in terms of people using the templates, et cetera, to deliver on, actually hitting their sleep goals and whatnot. So that might be another opportunity.
Awesome.
Cool. So I'm gonna, maybe if you roll that die, I'll ask and see if anyone has a question. But
all right. All right, I'm kind of done with the die now. It gave us 2, so we're just going to go in order now. Clearly, the gods want us to go in order. All right. B2B SaaS. They're targeting escape room businesses that have 2 to 8 rooms. So those are the bigger ones. So awesome. They're at 56,000 ARR. So cool. Well done on the progress there. It does booking and game management. I don't know what game management actually is with this, but cool. They're concerned because the trend feels like it's peaked and new locations aren't opening anymore. So how do we grow when the industry itself isn't growing? 80 locations are paying $58 per month average. Almost no new escape room openings in the past year. Churn is low because the existing rooms need us, but TAM feels capped considering expanding to similar entertainment venues like axe throwing, laser tag, or mini golf, but those have different operational needs. Not sure if we go horizontal or accept limited growth. Do you have thoughts, or do you want me to dive in?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds similar it's different than the prior 2, but it's similar in that there's kind of a capped set of audience that then you're going to have to at some point figure out how you're going to tackle an adjacent market, or where the value proposition is still similar. And so is there overlap with other venues that have the core crux of the problem? So I know they threw in the axe spaces or some of these others, and when you think of the core value proposition you're providing to these escape rooms, is it the the scheduling, or is it the game management? Because an axe throwing is not going to necessarily have the need for the game management, whereas maybe something else might. And so identifying, again, what is that highest level problem that you're solving for, and what's the greatest value that you're creating for this, and is there an additional customer that has similar pains that they're looking to have solved, would be how I would look at it. But if you are continuing, and it's great that you have low churn, but if these continue to not be opening, and then likely at some point the not opening turns into closing, then you're losing customers at some point down the line. So I think thinking strategically of what that next adjacent market might be.
Yeah, I agree with all that. One thing that's kind of missing from the question is what, they say the TAM feels capped, but what is the TAM right now? So you've got 80 paying $58 a month for 56K ARR. How much is left? What percentage of the market have you captured right now, right? So is the problem that the TAM is small and we were counting on being at the beginning of a wave that is now cresting, and so therefore we just can't get as large as we thought? Or is it still as large as we thought but it's no longer growing? I think those are two different concerns.
One thought is also just what type of business do you want to run? If it's something that's highly scalable and venture backable, then that's probably limitation. But if you want to run a successful venture and you're capturing the market and running a $10 million business because you captured a large portion of these game rooms, then hey, that's fine. Just understanding what your definition of success and what you're looking to have out of this is key, and it also will define the path of how quickly you scale, or if you need to raise capital or not.
Awesome. Well, we did get a question in the chat from a friend of the show, JP. When do you suggest founders look to pivot to capture industry adjacent opportunities, or is it something founders should always be considering exploring? One clarification: do you mean pivot as in abandon the old approach to go to this adjacent opportunity, or expand to an adjacent opportunity? And when I hear the word pivot, I think of the former, and the win question is very different for those two. So just to, I guess, to give a short answer, then Cameron, you can expand, or JP, you can provide clarification there. We're on a delay, so I don't want to wait. But if the question is about when do you actually make the pivot and like say, oh, that didn't work and this goes one, that's when the data is consistently pointing in one direction. So you've gotten data back, the data is showing that this thing doesn't work, and you have some data to indicate that some other opportunity may work. And so then you're going to run an experiment with the right sized bet to start testing that to see if you can get data on that. So that happens like in line. When you get the data, you get the data. Like it kind of is what it is. I don't know if you have anything to add to that before we go to the other one.
No, I think that just, the rigor in having experimentation to say, what does success look like? And so you're not continuing to we see this a lot with the sunk cost fallacy, right? It was like, okay, I'm just going to continue, just try one more thing. I'm going to do one more, a pilot run, or I'm going to add this one last feature and see if that captures the market. And so knowing when the data speaking to, hey, this just isn't going to work out, from once we do go to scale, there's just the percentages of the way the pirate metrics works. We're just never going to capture fully this market. And so then looking at adjacent opportunities. But maybe I'll pass it back to you to think about, as we look, if you're scaling, so you're already successfully maybe engaging your early adopters, how do you then expand into that next set of the market or an adjacent opportunity?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and it's always later than founders want it, because early stage ventures are extraordinarily risky, and the more that you divide your attention, the riskier they become. And so usually investors, founders, advisors, we all like to see focus. Like we're gonna dominate this niche here, and then we're gonna expand beyond that. And so the question about when do you expand into adjacent opportunities, assuming that the original is still working, is when you've begun to kind of dominate in that space, or when it's part of your path to growth. So you might have a competitor coming down on you that is where you're going to need to sort of expand this adjacent opportunity in order to keep capturing market share, right? Or they're going to come after that space and leave you no room for expansion later. There could be some math related to that. But if you're still trying to find product market fit in the original, but other things are looking good and it's not time to pivot, I would say don't expand yet. So we usually see this around Series A or Series B. It's not an early stage thing. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Cameron?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if you don't have that engine going, you haven't fully tapped into that full opportunity as of yet. I think, strategically thinking about what those opportunities are. But again, if you have finite time and resources, to not give up on, not necessarily give up, but to continue to work that engine until, okay, now we need to expand into this other place to get us to that, next major, revenue milestone. So I think it's something that you have to be continually thinking about. I'd be curious, JDM, thoughts on where to play and some of the other tools that might be valuable in looking at some of those adjacent markets. I know where to play is oftentimes at an early stage opportunity, but that could also be something as you're thinking of future market opportunities, is a great tool as you go forward. And there's another number of those as you look at the kind of tooling out there for founders.
Yeah, great question. So Cameron's referencing a book by Mark Gruber and Sharon Tall. I actually have a copy of it on my shelf here. It's called Where to Play. And so that's the name of the book. But what it's about is discovering the most valuable market opportunities and then how to pursue them. It's a great book if you're focused on innovation, or I also think it's a great exercise to go through in the early days where the startup is starting to take shape a little bit. So you have some data to work with, some customer discovery, maybe some early validation. Because what you can do is you can play through, and there's three things that you can go through. So you create a grab bag of market opportunities, and then you plot them to figure out which ones are worth pursuing, and then you focus in on one of them. And so there's three tools, which is roughly in the order of the three books here. What is helpful, I think, if you're wondering how that actually relates to this thing at all, is that part of the exercise is when you have this grab bag of market opportunities, you're assessing them on risk. And not in terms of like which one is riskier, although that's how you determine which ones are worth focusing on. But once you discover like, okay, these here are all high upside, and we have, relative to our current status, high conviction on this set of opportunities, and we can only pursue one. What we do is then we map both market risk and product risk together on all of those opportunities. And then if we take this set of opportunities and there's one we want to focus on, we want to make sure that we have backup opportunities and or also known as pivot opportunities, and growth opportunities, which is our means of expansion. So if it doesn't work, we want a pivot opportunity. If it does work, we want an expansion opportunity. And those two, and why are those two things different? Back to that risk. So two opportunities that share a lot of the same underlying risk are likely to both be invalidated in the case of a pivot, right? Because they shared a lot of the same underlying risk. So if we want to make sure that we have, when it comes to expansion opportunities, the underlying risk that we can share, it needs to be confined to one of those. To one of those types of risks. So we don't it can have customer risk, or we also want potentially a growth opportunity that's also product risk. But if they share both of those things, then it might not be interesting. With a backup opportunity, we want them as dissimilar as possible while still having sufficient overlap that we can pivot to it easily. And so you do that through that risk mapping exercise. And so doing that allows you to systematically understand what potential pivot and growth opportunities are. And it won't tell you when necessarily you need to engage in those, but you will have ones that decrease the effort it takes to engage in the pivot, or the effort that it takes to start pursuing that growth opportunity, because you've already identified market opportunities that are relatively adjacent to what you're currently working on, and that either do or don't share the same underlying risk.
So, and one area that you can also think of, there's a framework called PESTLE. Are you familiar with that, JDM? As like looking at different risks. So there's So like when you think about this kind of risk landscape, and then tying it to market opportunity using what we call the PESTLE framework. So P and PESTLE comes from political. So looking at what are there policy-driven demand opportunities that are being created or shrunken. So like, hey, you want to move out of this market, or this isn't a market opportunity to move in based on new regulations that are opening market opportunity. The E is in terms of economics. So thinking about their macro shifts in the economy. So things such as inflation or a variety of things. And then there's what we would call, like, in alignment with that, the value gaps and efficiency plays that you might be able to dive into. And then the S in PESTLE comes from social. So are there emerging behavior changes? We'd say the cultural zeitgeist changing. And so you're seeing that a little bit with artificial intelligence and all the use of a variety of tools, and also then tying into demographic shifts related to that. Technology is the T. So maybe the way we think about business models and platforms. So, one of the big ones was the shared economy and some of those types of things, and how we use technology within all of that. The last two are environmental, and then legal are the final two. But you can use that as a way to map more of those macro risks that then have some of those additional market opportunities that you can dive into, and start to see where you can fill that grab bag of opportunities to then start to plot out in terms of where you want to focus on maybe some of those adjacent markets. But again, those are much broader of maybe even a starting point. But if you are, hey, we've hit our growth engine, we're, have that product market fit and looking for new things, that's a good way to start to look at some of those opportunities.
It's interesting. So I use a framework called STEEP as opposed to PESTLE, which is Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's social, technological, economic, environmental, and policy.
There we go.
So yeah, interesting that we
Steep
could have.
is steep is maybe a little nicer, but whatever.
Well, but the
Well,
L isn't in there, so
maybe we'll have to come up with a new one, and maybe it's a cool
more
name.
IP, more
Yeah, more.
Traction Lab IP.
There we go.
All right.
Looks like we got another follow up from JP here, so you got it. Well, I can read it. Maybe
Go ahead.
whoever wants to take a stab at it first. But awesome. Thanks for another question, JP. Do you think the rate of growth around AI and how disruptive it can be in both legacy and emerging markets, should founders be looking at multiple opportunities and/or having multiple lines of revenue, or to target more than just one target client or market early on? So I think there's a number of, I guess, like initial questions within there. I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing with AI, and would be curious of your thoughts, JDM, as always, is, I think we're at a time where the tools and the things we can create are much easier than they obviously were, 3 months ago, for sure. But looking at it as the adoption of that technology, and is it creating value? So, it's not just, can we create something, but is there actually a willing user that's willing to pay you for it? And so I still think the fundamentals of getting the startup off the ground is we need to target an early path to paying customers, because that's going to prove out our ability to then grow that technology going forward. And so, with an intent to understand, are there multiple revenue streams as an option, is great to understand what that would look like, but having that clear path to getting that first set of paying customers is always the foundation that we're focusing on. So when we think of where risk lies from a more nuanced perspective, is that desirability. So do people want what we're trying to create, and then is it viable in terms of how we sustain it based on the way we're monetizing? And part of the connection between desirability and viability is the pain big enough for them to actually quantify paying you enough to solve that problem. And then last is on that feasibility. And so when I think of legacy systems versus emerging markets, legacy systems, there's usually got to be the adoption of the technology and the willingness to pay. And so obviously it's ripe for disruption in terms of what the technology can do, but do those people want to adopt that technology? And we actually just had a great workshop, JDMI, with David Bland, and we talk a lot about the switching costs and the inertia that customers feel. And so do they get a leap in value, and do they truly understand what they're getting out of it? And willing to ultimately make a switching cost to say, I'm going to move away from what I'm currently doing, even though it doesn't necessarily feel great currently, but I don't see the perceived value isn't as strong as maybe what I think it's going to actually be. So would be curious of your thoughts, JDM.
I think mine are much more simple here. I agree with what you said, but
mine were complex.
No, well, I mean, I think that you had a complex and nuanced kind of response, and I think mine will not be. So kind of taking this here, do you have do you think that blah 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 should founders basically have multiple lines of revenue or target more than just one client? My unnuanced answer is no. I don't think that. I think that what I'll add to that, though, is that there is, if your goal is a highly scalable startup, then the answer, I think, is pretty uniformly no, and I don't think that would be controversial to articulate. However, if you're not necessarily trying to build a highly scalable venture backable startup, then something like this can be more interesting. And so there's a trend in some of the venture studio spaces. There's a trend in some of the entrepreneurship corners as well, to, instead of creating one large, highly scalable startup that you're looking to exit for, for $500 million, you're instead creating a series of small revenue generating companies. And so each one is revenue, is getting, 5-10 million in revenue. And so altogether you have a portfolio of large, revenue generating companies. And so that is something that is an interesting approach. And in order to do that, there's some companies, there's an organization in town that does that with existing companies, and they just level up on the sales and marketing side. And so that's a really common thing to do. But also, if you're just trying to get a bunch of cash flowing businesses here, AI is a great way to do that. So
cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know we normally go for an hour, but we did start late, and so maybe we'll work on landing the plane here a little earlier. We only got through 3 of the 7 questions that we've got on the list, which means we do have stuff to cover on Substack. But
Finalize one more.
Yeah, I was kind of looking like should we maybe do one more? Let's do one more. The next one here, going in order though, we kind of answered a similar one last week, so let's skip that one for the moment. We'll bring it up on Tuesday. All right, so let's do the B2B SaaS. It's like a lot of B2B SaaS today. I coincidentally skipped the one that wasn't B2B SaaS. There's only one in the list. It's not B2B SaaS. Okay, but this one is targeting commercial cleaning companies that have between 5 and 30 employees. They have some unpaid pilots, and the company owners say that it helps or would help, but most of their workers don't speak good English, and they don't use their smartphones for work. So how do we build software for a workforce that doesn't use apps? They have 4 companies and pilots. The office managers love the scheduling interface, but cleaners still get assignments via text message or phone calls because they don't check apps. Companies are hesitant to require app usage from workers, considering SMS-based interface or manager-only tool, but that reduces the value proposition significantly. My question is why? Why does it reduce it significantly? So like, what is it that you're having the cleaners actually do? Like, are you trying to get GPS location on them, or something else that would require them not using the app, and so but having it installed, like spyware type of thing, so that you can get real-time location? Or are you having them engage in this in some way where they need to do something like starting, finishing, sending a message that this will require some customized work. Maybe we can do that next week or whatever. Like, I'm curious what it is that you're wanting them to do in the app that they can't do through another means like SMS, because that's how they're engaging with their bosses right now, without it reducing your value proposition. So like, I want to know what those things are, because I think that like that's the meat's gonna be there. But I think the first thing I'm going to do is just push back on that a little bit, on that assumption, because you have a group of users who aren't going to use you in the traditional way, and a group of managers who want to do the scheduling and team management. And so the question is going to become, what do those interactions need to actually look like? And I think I'm going to push back a little bit. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but this is a point where I don't want to go on vibes on this. I want data for why this won't work without all of the employees having the app on their phone.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I think the higher level way of maybe looking at it is like, what is the outcome you're trying to derive, and then what features might you be able to ultimately push to solving that and creating that outcome. And so versus it being like, we're set on this feature for whatever reason, even though you can maybe achieve that outcome that they're paying you to achieve through different means. And so again, it's people are trying to buy a future state and solve their problem. And then, if there's not a way to solve it with, an app, then that's maybe an issue. But if you're still able to derive that value in that way, then I don't see that as an issue.
Awesome. Well, with that, we will call it here. Thanks everybody so much for joining. Before we go, last couple of things. Tuesdays at noon on Substack, Fridays LinkedIn and YouTube at noon as well. So join us there. Submit a question in advance, as we got some here. JDM.bio, calendar, fill out the form, do your thing. Love to hear from you in the long form, though. Asking the questions live is always a bit more fun. Just a harder to ask a more detailed question, although JP was definitely pushing the boundaries on that. So thanks for engaging and doing that. Lastly, it is Halloween. Have a great Halloween. But sometime soon in November, the Traction Lab is going to have an announcement, a fun little announcement.
What are we announcing?
Yeah, Karen's trying to play dumb. Like, I don't know what we're doing here.
I don't know. This is news to me. This is news to me.
We are just on the verge of launching a new program that I think is going to be pretty exciting for a lot of people. But yeah, that'll be coming sometime in the next few weeks. So
Are we doing
keep an eye out for that.
A product launch?
It is a product launch. It is a product launch. But in the good kind, in the sense that we're
Keep an eye out on Product Hunt. It's coming live. No, I'm just kidding.
And this will not yeah. Anyway, more to come, but it's I'm really looking forward to it. So let's wrap on that sometime in the near future. But otherwise, thank you guys for joining. Cameron, thanks for hopping in. I know you were out and about and had to kind of join wherever you did. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Well, thanks everyone for engaging and hanging on with us as we got a little bit later start. So appreciate your time and energy. Awesome questions, engagement in the chat. So we love that. That's been some great energy back-to-back weeks. So we look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a wonderful and safe Halloween, and keep on doing the fight of entrepreneurship. So we're in your corner, and look forward to seeing you at future sessions. So thank you all.
Always be testing.
Always be testing. Data. All right.